Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in. So just as usual, just a general weekly view of what's going on and out there in the tech space this week. So as usual, I kind of start with the BBC. It is quite a good source of kind of daily tech news we do find. The first thing that springs to mind is the ransomware continuous ransomware news and information that we get out. And I think it's just important for people to understand that ransomware is now becoming big business. And I think there's other stories now later that we can look at that give us a bit more detail. But from our perspective, what our clients need to be aware of is that our obsession with patch management and keeping security fixes and updates and locking down sort of local admin rights on workstations is now more and more important than ever, because the problem being is that before, people were able to target you to get ransomware into your environment, and I think what we're finding now is that bots are able to do it. And the problem being is, and we're seeing this more and more, when bots are able to scan lists of IP addresses and domain names and be able to deliver ransomware if you're not set up correctly or you're not smart enough to be able to fend it off, or just unlucky maybe, then when the bots are able to do this, this is actually doing this on large and massive scale, and we're seeing these viruses be rewritten at a rate of knots, so that almost the likes of Sophos and Symantec and people like that just struggle to keep up with the demand effectively. So I think we've got some more slightly later on. So one news story here about Google AI wins a second Go game against the top player. I'm not a Go game expert. I kind of know that it's quite complicated. Obviously, we know that Grandmaster chess games against the IBM sort of large powerhouse computing units like Watson are very effective, but we are seeing AI now start to almost on a daily basis become smarter and prove that they're smarter than humans, which is very interesting. Could be a little bit worrying for the human race, but is just interesting in general that we're able to develop that compute power now and that logic that's able to outstrip the capabilities of the human mind. So, do I think that that's just this is just it, and we're on a plateau at the moment? No, I think fortunately or unfortunately, however we want to watch, I think things are going to go from strength to strength in terms of AI development. So the next story from the BBC that we had a little look at in terms of Bangladesh, bank hackers failed in bid to net 1 billion. So we're seeing cyber thieves just get a lot more intelligent now, and as we mentioned before, it's not just about hacking. It's not just about being able to put ransomware. It's about being able to target organizations, and kind of like an elaborate episode or film of the Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 12 type movies. These people are organized groups that are able to target and understand a lot about the processes of the background business. So I'm not saying your bank account, your personal bank account, or your business bank account is going to be able to hack tomorrow by cyber thieves, and we know that sort of banks will insure you to certain levels and whatnot. However, what we're understanding is that when people want to get into Sony and people want to get into TalkTalk and some of the big stories that we've heard in recent years, they will do. This doesn't take 10 minutes. This isn't some Chinese 12-year-old kid that's just running some random hacking attack. This takes months and months and months to be able to pull something like this off. Luckily, they wasn't able to do it, but we are seeing this a bit more and more these days. So another story, I'm a big follower of Salesforce, love them or loathe them. They have some smart technology within their. We'll talk about machine learning and smart technology sort of slightly later on, but they've got some smart technology now which is predictive technology, which is able to work across your whole data set. And it's interesting now that they're able to run this with the Microsoft Outlook plugin. I've not played with the Microsoft Outlook plugin, but I know that some of the large and best document management systems like iManage are all come from Outlook and centralized from Outlook, and the GUI is within Outlook. And I think that's testament to the power of how Microsoft have developed the Outlook tool, but also as the human race, how reliant we are on the Outlook application and what it does. I know myself personally, I can't run my life without it. So it's interesting now that a lot more applications are coding to work just specifically within Outlook. I mean, iManage is one definitely to have a little look at if you have sort of enterprise level document management requirements. A very quick one here. So the next Apple Press is 21st of March. We look forward to that. So I think the thing that I pick out here is they're going to announce a 4-inch iPhone. Of slowly sort of moving on to bigger phones. I think these are the people in my team that are Samsung people and prefer the sort of larger Samsungs. So I personally don't think a smaller phone would work for me now, because I think given the power of these things, I'm able to do a lot more of my day-to-day role that requires now processing power and also a good visual. So I seem to be working to having a bigger phone, although I think the argument being is in the summer, I think you want a smaller phone because you've got lighter clothes on you, and in the winter you don't mind having a bigger phone. That's for anyone that can afford two phones. Okay, so the next story up. So block Windows 10 forced update. So I think this is a bit of a theme. So I'm not a Windows 10 hater. As you can see, I have it on my desktop. I did actually like Windows 8 and didn't think there was anything wrong with that. But what we've got to understand is what Microsoft's trying to do with this operating system. So what they're trying to achieve is almost like there's actually a version of Linux within Windows 10. What they're trying to complete sort of platform, to be completely platform agnostic, kind of what Apple have already done, but they're trying to do this on a level that involves all the kind of web and gaming and operating systems and mobile and tablet and Surface. So Windows 10 is not going to be problematic for sometimes. Is what Microsoft are trying to do is kind of something better than they've ever done before. So I think we need to give them a bit of time to do this. But we are seeing a bit of an underground movement of people trying to block and stop patches and updates. As we all know, it's kind of better sometimes to wait for other people to work out the kinks. But we are seeing this more and more on a daily basis. So I don't think Windows 10 is going to be the next Windows Vista. I think it's going to come good, but I think it's just they're just working out the kinks. So, story here on InfoWorld. So, Google joins Facebook's Open Commutes project and submits a 48-volt rack design. So, I think it's just one thing that's just important for people to understand. So your typical co-location data center was very much a HP or an IBM or a Dell SAN and RAID arrays and all of this good stuff. So where compute power is changing, that's able to give birth to the Amazon Web Services, the Azure platform, the Google apps, and it's basically the data center technology that I call mesh. I think there's a lot of different sort of versions of it out there, but it's very interesting that the likes of Google and Facebook, people that have these data centers en masse, and people like Amazon kind of share information and knowledge. I mean, these are all kind of components that are built out in China with just racks and racks of memory and racks of disk and racks of processors, almost like sort of large supermarkets. The actual stereotypical, your archetypal data center, your co-location data center just isn't what it used to be anymore. But with the fact that it's interesting for me that these big guns are sharing these designs and sharing the new technology that's coming out, and it's interesting, and especially with Microsoft. I mean, if you've ever watched the Microsoft Azure data center tour on YouTube, so you just see these are effectively containers that are pulled off with compute power, that are pulled off big 40-foot lorries, and they plug water in them for cooling, and obviously a fiber connection, and some power, and they go. But and they are modular, and they can be sort of transferred from different data centers. The technology's moved on, but what seems to be wonderful is the fact that they're sharing the ability to limit power. So the reason why we need to limit power in data centers is wonderfully for the for the environment, obviously, but also it decreases the total cost of ownership. And a lot of data centers, a lot of compute power usage is unnecessary. The amount of heat that it gives out, and it's just smarter ways of just delivering that technology. But I think it's good that we're seeing that the big guns are kind of sharing some of that information. So the next one here in computer world, machine learning tools. So I think machine learning is kind of the next step on from big data. So big data is obviously the ability for the smaller organizations and not just the big guns to be able to collect data from Twitter or Facebook or wherever it wants. If it's got lots of weather reading stations all over the world that require sort of petabytes of information. So big data and the NoSQL sort of movement was able to store and not so much index, I think it's probably the same, but be able to allow you to use large quantities of data. When we get into machine learning, so these are bringing sort of advanced algorithmic tools to the masses effectively. We know that sort of Amazon's got a wonderful machine learning process within their stack, and this is basically just for the ability for lower level developers and not just your Mensa elite to be able to work with tool sets and APIs to be able to build machine learning capabilities to be able to get good sense and good data out of petabytes and petabytes of big data that they have stored. So I think it's in its infancy, but when you're looking at the likes of investment houses and hedge funds and banks that are wanting to that store lots and lots of data, that are wanting to predict where markets are going, and weather stations for meteorologists and all of this good stuff, I think it's becoming more and more exciting. Again, slightly worrying for the human race how fast machines are learning, given the AI story that we've already had today. But it seems to be wonderful progress. The quick story here on V3 about Virgin Media business wins the Met Office in the UK supercomputer contract. So we're just seeing Virgin in the UK become a bit more dominant with being able to supply big data and big services to big enterprise. So I think I've watched the rise of Virgin Media in the UK and I've actually been quite impressed. So another one here very quickly on computer world, just admins battle the patch fatigue. So I don't think that this is something we talked about this with in the cyber sort of sections earlier on. I don't think this is anything that we're able to combat. I mean, I just in 3GI in our business, we just have an understanding that part of what allows our client base to be secure is the fact that we're patching on a daily basis. And the problem, as we know with patches, is that sometimes they're not correct and they need to be rolled back, and we have to deliver them in an organized fashion. So the whole world is never really able to be fully patched for everything the whole time. And I don't think we need to get excited here. It doesn't mean to say that the second that your computer hasn't, or your servers have not been updated, or your firewalls have not been updated with the latest patch, it means that someone's got to come along and spend good time in being able to exploit that vulnerability. But it's just kind of highlighting the fact that even on the desktops themselves, on the devices, even now with the smartphone sort of revolution, I can't see how we're ever going to get rid of patch fatigue as it's kind of distributed here. There are tools available. There's a HDF tool that we're kind of currently working with that kind of, not that doesn't need patches, but it works more at the HAL layer to stop changes from foreign bodies being able to sort of change the operating system and firmwares and all of this good stuff. However, what we've got to understand is that to keep our technology current and keep it safe, then it needs to be patched, and it's just an overhead and a hygiene item within life that I think that we all need to accept, really. So another story here. So I've known that this has been coming for a while. So this is on CIO. So you've probably already heard. So Microsoft are porting SQL onto Linux. So I think so we all know that Microsoft SQL and MySQL have battled for some time. They're both very good pieces of database architecture. But whereas the MySQL has been able to run on Linux, sometimes for higher volumes, this has been preferred. However, I think it's important to understand with Microsoft now becoming a technology provider for the next generation, Microsoft are transcending their own architecture. So we're seeing this with Azure. Has got Linux capability. You can run Linux environments within Azure, and they're doing a lot more with kind of Linux distributions within the Microsoft stack. We know that Windows 10 has got a Linux component within it, but for Microsoft SQL to now run or now be able to run on a Linux environment is just really proving that Microsoft is not trying to be just only Windows only platform. It's trying to run on just about everything and is thinking with the technologist in mind. So I'm just going to pause the video one moment. That was so you didn't hear me sneeze. So the next piece, Microsoft updates ready to run Windows 10 Virtual Machine for developers. So I think, so it's just the last one that we've got here. I think Windows 10 is trying to be wonderful, and I think this is a compliment to the hypervisor technology within Microsoft. Hyper-V, which is obviously what runs the Azure architecture for Microsoft. It is wonderful. VMware was very dominant for a long time. And it's really good to see that the Hyper-V environment now being used a lot more widespread. I think the pricing for Hyper-V kind of lends more to its favour. VMware is still sort of fairly pricey. I think that there's going to be something that happens in the market there for that to adjust. But just seeing, sort of understanding that we're going to be able to use Windows 10 to be able to run virtual machines within it, a lot better for development instances and whatnot. And I think we're probably aware VMware has its workstation equivalent for running sort of VMware workstation local test environments and whatnot. It is still quite pricey. I think there are sort of free type player versions available, but it's interesting to see that Microsoft are doing this. So okay, thank you. So that's this week's updates. Feel free to come direct to me for any, through the channel for any questions or any updates.